So where am I now? I'm at Priene, or Priene, depends on which language you're speaking. And here too, the staircase that goes up to the city has been chiseled into the bedrock. Not unlike what we saw in Patmos by the church, by the cave of the Apocalypse. You can see how nicely chiseled it is here. Very finely done. And they date this city to 300 years before Christ, the Christian era. And what's nice about the city is that it keeps very much its Hellenic style and architecture. After the Romans came, they were here, but they didn't change much. And afterwards, Christianity came here, and they didn't change much. That's why many people I know, friends, are in love with this city, because it's one of the only cities you can visit which around this area which is very, very much in the styles of the old Hellenes. And it's in pretty good shape. You can still experience the city the way it stood. There's an Athena temple, a theater. Here again, you see these carved into the bedrock. And I'll be showing you some things in this video. There's also an Egyptian temple, a synagogue, which I've yet to find. But there's also a beautiful Demeter sanctuary perched above the city here, which I always make a point of getting to. So you can imagine how protected these people were, because the staircase is quite long. And that's the fortress. See, this is what you see, you know, when you look around. Look at this stone here, it's just lying there. Beautifully chiseled. It's lost its purpose. It's just lying there. But that's Greece and Anatolia. There's a column which has been integrated, probably rolled down from a temple there. Earthquakes and gravity take their toll. And yeah, so you can hear that I'm not out of breath, but I have my trusty cappuccino that I always get. It's a paradox, drinking a cappuccino and visiting a city like this, but why not? And this is the original wall. So the whole city had a wall built around it. And above this city, on top of the hill or mountain, is a necropolis. So I'm gonna cut this off and just take a walk through things here and reacquaint myself, as it were, to Priene. Here it opens up. Now we're up at the plateau here, and you can see that they've pretty much figured out the whole plan here. Where the theater is still there, Sanctuary of Athena, the Agora. We'll go to there. Yeah, and you can see, if you haven't been here, you should really come, because this is such a nice thing to be here. It's often so peaceful. And what I mean is that it's kept its integrity, you know. And it's nice to take a walk down through here. I was once here with my daughter, about 6-7 years ago. And she was sitting on the stairs saying, "Papa, do you see them?" And I said to her, What are you talking about? She said, "Do you see the people?" I said, "Yana, we're alone here." She said, No. There are people walking through the streets. They're going to the market. They're going to the theater. They're going to pray. And, you know, kids can see that stuff when they're young, until they get too deeply involved in the world. But it's okay. We're all attracted to the world. But it's nice when you can keep your intuition and your gifts. Yeah. So I'm going to make this video. It's going to be too long. I know that, but I don't care. Yeah. I can get rid of my Starbucks cup. Yeah. So here we walk down the main street here, and to the left and the right they had shops and tradesmen offering their services. You can see it's built up on the out above. There's another, I forget what temple that is. I mean, you can just walk around and just get a feel for it. When I was in Pompeii for the first time, just a month ago, I just decided to let my body absorb the temples. It was a huge lizard, huge. And just, not try to understand it. A lot of people there had books or headsets, and they just sat down and looked at the fresco and just heard somebody told them about it, which is fine. I understand that. I did that myself. But I've reached a point now, probably because I've traveled so much and I've been to so many different temple complexes throughout the world. It's not arrogant, but look at this now. This is probably rolled down, maybe from the Athena temple there. You can see them all there, because there's still a lot to see from the Athena temple, but a lot of it just rolled down because, like I said, of earthquakes or because of man-made destruction. Yeah. So let's just take a stroll. You can see there that triangular shape that came from up there. They just reassembled it down here. And you have to know that actually belonged once to the Athena temple. But and then as we get down here to below the base of the Athena temple, this is the sacred hall of the Agorda. This is where sacred hall, what would that mean? Let me see where it was. With 49 Doric columns of 5 meters high, with wood relief beams, probably to venerate many gods and goddesses. Yeah. I mean, a city like this was built around religion and commerce. Especially this city, because just down below is a river. So you could travel by boat, even though we're inland, you could travel by boat to the Mediterranean, and even in the other direction towards Magnesia, because these cities were always connected with each other. You see some inscription here in Greek. Greek being the language of even the Roman Empire, the street language. Yeah, there it goes. We can go up to the Temple of Athena up there. I think we'll do that. But I just want to show you something here. That these columns here. I mean, you see this when you go to Jerusalem and you walk down below when you walk down below. Here's actually here it says the synagogue is down there, and I haven't found it yet. The food market is down there. And that's going outside of the town, and also homes are down there. Yeah. But there's very little there remaining. But look at the size of these columns here. I mean, you can imagine how massive they were. Enormous. And this just rolled down the hill from there. Just like when they destroyed the Solomon's temple in the year 70. They just poured the stones from the temple down below. They're still there. You can still see them. Yeah. I'll show you the outer edge, or towards the outer edge. Look at this. This is something that really interests me always. Here's a stone with a staircase carved into it. And you wouldn't think much of that, You'd say, why? But we know that before the Hellenes got here, they were celebrating other gods and goddesses like Sibylla, Hecate, and even Artemis and Hera, and they're more ketonic forms. And I would imagine if you walked up there, you can see the stairs, that was probably a sanctuary for Sibylla, the Anatolia goddess. I'm tempted to walk up there, but I can't film and walk up there. So now you okay. Anyhow, I promised to show you the staircase leading down to the outside of the wall down there. That's the west wall, I would take it, yeah. And down there were a lot of homes. They built a synagogue afterwards and some other buildings, but now I gotta go up there. You know, my passion and love for the pre-Hellenic religions burns in me. That's why I love Göbekli Tepe and Kran Tepe, because temple complexes which are over 12,000 years old are mind-boggling, very humbling. Okay, there are a lot of dead trees here, so I don't think I'm going to see much. But again, just if you want to shut this off, shut it off. It's my passion. These stones here are much older than the Hellenic times. First of all, they're not so finely chiseled, and they create up here a plateau. And now you ask yourself, or I ask myself, and the trees are falling down for whatever reason, why are these ancient stones, prehistoric stones there, and why are there these staircases here that go down? And the answer is more than likely this was a sanctuary to celebrate a deity here like Sibylla, without a doubt actually, because a lot of these ancients knew where the power places were, and they would then build on these power places a sanctuary. And then the people who came afterwards, like the Hellenic Greeks, knew that as well. And they said, well, that's great. They directed us here, so let's build our city here. And that's what happens. I actually found out that there are two prehistoric sites going back 8,000 years just outside of Ephesus. And I can't go to them because it's filled with fruit trees. And some farmer just says, you know, there may be a temple complex here. They did some digs on it. My friend Julju told me, Paul, I'm sorry, but you can't go there. And that's the story here. They think differently in Turkey than they do in the West. You know, in the West, they would just say, okay, there's a temple complex. We're going to buy the owner out, pay him fairly, you know, and then take it over and develop it for tourism or for archaeology. No, they don't do that. As a matter of fact, in the Channel Euphra area, they've discovered 12 of these complexes, and one is over I think it's a pomegranate orchard, and a whole Japanese team came in to start excavating that, and he said no. You know, he said, my land is good. Every year I have a good harvest. And they reached a deal with him that they would wait 6 months until the harvest time. And then he would say, okay, give me the money now. And you can start excavating it. And, you know, that's, for us, is perplexing as Germans or Americans, because you think if something has a value to the world, you know, just by means of appropriation, just do a fair deal and just force money on him and say, we're taking this over. No, they don't do that here. They just don't do it here. You know, and that's also quite kind of impressive that there's so much respect for private property here. But, so I discovered something new, so I thank you for this, because these staircases, like I said here, you hear the crickets in the background. I love it. I mean, summer's coming. These staircases here are probably maybe 3,000 years old or 2,800 years old, long before the Greeks got here. And they would climb up there and do rituals or do even sacrifice animals up there. And it's sitting here in the middle of this old city. You know, so they knew about it, but they said that time is over. Another time's begun. Now we're going to celebrate the 12 Olympia gods and goddesses, and everything's fine, okay? I hope, if you're still listening to me, I hope you're not bored. You know, that's why I've been here maybe 20 times, and it's not enough, because you come here and you walk around, and then you walk around again and you see totally new things. They got to get rid of these dead trees, you know? It's unbecoming. I sound like a damn American now, or even more German. Look at all the dead trees. Maybe because of a wind. Maybe that's not a forest fire. And now you see down there below, this goes down. You see where that road is down there? There was once a river that ran all the way from the Mediterranean up through here, tributary. And so these were all homes, presumably. And there was also a gymnasium on that side down there, which you can still see. So the town is large. When I say large, then you ask yourself, this was the food market here. Somehow they established that. Maybe they found remnants of tomatoes. Now they can figure that out. It's actually where my daughter saw the people come in the shop, because she was sitting on those stairs there. I hope she doesn't watch this video. She'll say, Papa, this is not fair. You shouldn't talk about me. But so here's another staircase. And I'll just finish this video by taking you up to the Athena, or this part of the video, because I want to show you also afterwards the theater, and also I want to take you up to the Demeter temple or sanctuary. There's a whole big debate about what is a sanctuary and what is a temple. And I've asked so many people, experts, about that. And you get so many different answers. Even here in Turkey, you might see a description. And in one sentence, they'll say, you're now at the temple of da-da-da. And the next sentence, they'll say, you're now at the sanctuary of da-da-da-da-da. So they seem to be pretty interchangeable. And it has to do with the size mostly. But because a small ceremonial place is clearly a sanctuary, you know. See, it's just magical. Just magical. It must have been so lively here. It must have been so nice to be here. Your life was fully integrated. So they built this retaining wall that they could build a temple on top of it. Because, you know, you'd wake up and you go shopping maybe. You'd go and pray to Athena or Demeter or the Greek gods. Whatever, you had your choice. Here's another carved in staircase, carved into the bedrock. And then another carved in, so you see that this is all work done long before the Greeks, and now the Greeks are here. And what do the Greeks do? They say one of our major goddesses is the goddess Athena. We're going to build for her here. So you can see all these pieces of the columns just laying around here, but you see also 4 still there. It was a huge temple. I can't give you the dimensions, but it sat here so majestically over the plains down there in a very peaceful, mostly peaceful city. And there, up there is the necropolis. I haven't been there. You can apparently drive up there. I should go, but not today. And then here you see some Greek writing. Now, this must have been extraordinary, you know, because it just sits here in the middle of nowhere. I only know one temple that impresses me as much as this, and this would be the Artemis Temple in Sardis, because it just sits out there in like in a valley with the mountains all around it. And that's so, there's a lizard, beautiful lizard, beautiful. It's so fitting to a goddess, which is belonging to the procreative forces of the cosmos, that they would place their temples in the middle of nature. These trees have all grown up, but they fit, don't they? I mean, they weren't there. Or maybe some of them were there. Not these trees, but their ancestors. And here they played a game here. A lot of you might know this game. You know, they just carved this in here, and the kids would play a game, or even the adults would play a game. They're all over the place. Graffiti. These blocks were kept together with pieces of metal, iron, here, which were then taken. There's still some there, you see them, to hold them in place. But they took them and melted them down to swords and so forth later on. So you see, they played these games. I mean, they had a lot of time. Something we don't have anymore. Beautiful carving. This is probably belongs to the lentil up there. I sat on top of it, but it all got knocked down. You know, sometimes Turkey makes a plan that they want to rebuild something, but truth be told, they don't do a very good job. You know, they use a lot of white marble, which doesn't fit to the old marble. They even use a lot of cement. I know a lot of people here who I'm friends with who just get so upset about that, and I share that, you know. But Turks have a different aesthetic because they're not descendants of the Hellenic people, you know. They came here, nothing against the Turks, I love the Turks, I have a lot of good friends, but they actually came here from about 100 years ago, from countries in the east like Kazakhstan and all these countries there, and they just settled here. Yeah, that's why this Anatolia in general is like a revolving door. You know, people come here, or musical chairs. People come here, they settle here, they build temples, thank God, and they say this is ours, and then as time comes to an end, and either they're chased out or they move on, and somebody else comes and says, oh, look at this. We can take these blocks and build our homes, which they did a lot. That's why this one's not disturbed, because it's so far away from any settlement here, you know. And truth be told, there's so many temples that they actually just destroyed just to take building blocks to build their homes, like the Artemis Temple in Seljuk in Ephesus. Yeah. So you see, these didn't roll down, but they're right on the precipice. They could have easily rolled down, and if an earthquake hits again. But this is so classic. This carving is so classic here. It's so beautiful. Now we're way up above the city. Not way up, but above enough. You can see all this backfill probably came from when this was destroyed. But look at that. Okay, I'm going to make my way up to Demeter, so I'm going to take a pause, make a break. Back. It's not easy to find. And even though I've been here a few times, I take my direction by being down by the Athena Temple and try to go straight up. And it works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't work. In any case, this was no small structure, because you see the retaining wall there, indicating that the complex was quite large. And it goes back here into there. I'm not sure what that was used for, but in any case, this, I take my hat off in reverence. This was a temple complex built for the earth goddess and the goddess of the harvest, Demeter. and her daughter, Persephone. And I'm sure you know the story. It's quite dramatic that Demeter had a beautiful daughter, young, maybe just post-pubescent, who used to go with her when she would plant the fields for us, that we would have something to eat. And then she was with her mother one day, as the story goes, and she wanted to make a collection of flowers for her mother, so she goes away from her mother, and suddenly a chasm opens up, and she's sucked down into the bowels of the earth by the god of the underworld, Hades, who incidentally is a brother of Zeus. And Hades understandably wanted a wife, and so he took this young maiden and took her down into the underworld. And then after a while, Demeter realized her daughter was no longer there. I have to go over there because look at this. I'm sorry, look at that bedrock there. And if there's a Demeter temple here, then probably there's another older temple there. I'll check it out, but first I want to explain to you the rest of the story because it's lovely. It has a lot to do with reconciling our adult self with the inner child in us. So Demeter is understandably distressed, and she's looking for her daughter, and she's looking for her daughter, and she forgets to plant the crops, and everything becomes desiccated, partly because of her mourning, and partly because she forgot to do what she's supposed to do. And so, who caught wind of it? I think Hades caught wind of it and said, you know, this doesn't work, and told Zeus that his children, that is us, you see there's a column, are going to starve to death. So, I know he sends Hermes down to have a conversation with his brother Hades. And Hermes, a great messenger, can do that. I'm not sure what this is. And he comes together with Hades and said, listen, your brother's not so happy about this. I'm just looking at this because a tree grew up, but I suspect very strongly this was a ritual place for the Divine Feminine. That's why it's here. Can we make a deal? Can you let her go for 2 seasons out of the year? And he says it's too late because she's eaten 6 pomegranate seeds, and when you eat pomegranate seeds, you can't be released from the underworld. But they negotiated, and that's why we have the 4 seasons. So now we're actually in the Holy of Holies here. That means the high priestesses, not men, more than likely. Artemis was served by men, but I think Demeter more by women, would come in here and bring probably an offering of an animal or bread or beer and approach the altar here and offer it to Demeter here. I'm almost sure this is where the altar was because this is the Holy of Holies. And what's really nice about this complex here is when you sit down, you can feel so much peace, you know. And I think it's not a coincidence that it's perched up over the city just below the necropolis. And if you think about it, necropolis and the underworld, where the daughter ended up becoming the queen, fit together well. So this is hardly anybody comes here. First of all, because it's hard to find, and secondly, because people don't really have time. But it is one of the nicest places I can say in Anatolia that I've come to, that I can visit. Really, really, really nice. So if you have a chance, you know where it is now. And don't give up. If you start climbing up the hill, don't give up. You just keep going to the left and going up, and then you'll see this. You'll see the retaining walls, and then you're there. Okay. Or ask Demeter for guidance, and she'll say, "Come, my child, come to me. I'll show you where I was and am venerated, along with my daughter." Okay, good. Now I'm going to sit down and enjoy it. Just to give you your orientation. We were just up there by the Demeter temple there, quite far up there. And down there is the Athena temple. And you can't see it because of the trees. It's not far away. And down below you see some of the old city, but now where we're coming, if we bought tickets in time, we're coming to the concert hall here. This is a theater in relatively good shape. Okay, people are doing Greeks are here. Nice. And you can see how far it goes up. Much smaller than the Ephesus theater, and it's actually very steep because they built it into the hillside. And but sometimes they say that they can tell you how many people lived in a city like Priene based on how many people could, the capacity of a theater like this. They say 10%. So if say 25,000 could fit in here, then there were probably 2,500 people in the city, but I don't believe that formula anymore. They walk down the stairs. So now I'm just going to gently walk down the stairs, and these are all original stones. You can see they're actually worn down because of people walking up and down back in the day. And come down here. It's not often I have to share the theater. Here again, bedrock that they carved. It's also practical when you have bedrock like this, you can just carve seats out of it. But it's not as nice as if you carve these stones and place them here. This is all white marble. And I think the quarry for white marble is not nearby. There's one in Aphrodisia, which is about 3 hours away from here with a car. And a lot of the marble came from Italy, at least for the Roman Empire. Just go backstage. They're speaking Greek and then German. They're probably Greeks who live in Germany. Yeah, it's cosmopolitan. And here's a back way. Yeah, that goes down into the city. And this stops here, but then you walk up here and you come into either a temple complex of some sort. You know, homes were made with columns, but also mostly churches, sanctuaries were. And then, I just want to show you something else here. That would be these beautifully carved seats for dignitaries. Here, in really nice shape. You feel really good when you sit down in them. So we have them there with a heart in it. I mean, the Turks just like to do sightseeing. They find it a perfect place to do photo ops, which is nice. Nothing against that. Nothing against that at all. So now we're going to exit the theater. And I think we're going to take I just want to show you. It might say here how many people were seated here. But you see it, the orchestra, the stage building, the altar of the altar of Dionysus is 5 that was here. So they celebrated the god of wine and fun here. And of course this is the stage. And here would be the stage building. It's quite elaborate, actually. And I don't know if it says how many people could sit in there. So you could tell, you know, if you celebrated a god like Dionysus, who was a god of wine and song, and also a serious god, then you know they had a lot of fun here. You know, maybe a lot of the theater pieces had to do with really enjoying life. And you can feel that here because there's certainly there's a lightness here to this town. Very much so, actually. There's nothing heavy about this town. When I mean that, when you can connect to the Hellenic part of it, you know, afterwards when the Roman came or the Byzantine Church came, then things got dicey. But when it was originally built, there are very few places I feel so much joy, and this is one of them, actually. The other place is Catalahuk, which is one of the oldest cities in the world, and also in Anatolia. Yeah, there are other places, but I mean, when you feel just the original joy that was built around the city or in the city, that you can feel it here. And when you know they celebrated Dionysus along with Athena, Athena was not all fun and games, especially for her father when she was incubated in his head. Now they said this is the way to the church. Now here, this is what's really interesting. We can end with that. This is a sanctuary of the Egyptian gods, you know. And I'll tell you one thing. How did the Egyptians come here? And why did they celebrate their gods? Well, it has much less to do with old Egyptian. It has a lot to do with the Romans who came from Macedonia and settled in Egypt and took over Egypt. They then became very powerful in the world, and they mixed their aesthetics and their religions with the Egyptian religions, but adopting mostly the Egyptian religions. But then they built, you know, they would come here because they were part of the Roman Empire, and then they would build a temple to Egyptian gods. But these are partly Egyptian gods and partly gods which were more a hybrid between the Roman gods and the Egyptian gods. When the Romans couldn't make a one-to-one translation of a god from the Hellenics or the Egyptians, then they would make a new god, or a semi-new god, and that was Seraphis. Seraphis was celebrated here in this temple. You get one temple for 3 gods. Pretty economical, and I'm going to try to remember the other 2. You know, in all the museums around here, you see images of Bes and Osiris and other gods. So here we are. So we have the temple of... So we have Seraphis, Anubis, which is nice, and Isis. So the middle temple, number 3, was probably for Isis? Doesn't say. There's Athena Strasse, which is really nice. So this goes to the Athena temple. And I guess the 3 gods that were celebrated here were Isis, Seraphis, and Anubis. Isis and Anubis are fully Egyptian gods, and Seraphis is kind of a invention from the I can't say that today. The Roman influence. But it's all good, and this was their temple complex here. Okay, folks, I'm going to move on because I have a lunch date with somebody who is a relative to a good friend that I lost recently. Glenn, who lived here in Didma for the last 22 years, was a champion of the Apollo temple there, did everything to keep its integrity, and sadly he passed away last year in London. So we're going to meet at the table where I used to share a beer with Glenn on more than one occasion. And I even took him in my car to a couple of temple complexes And I promised him, the bastard, that I would carry him on my shoulders to visit Göbekli Tepe. He enjoyed his cigarettes and his whiskey. No problem there. This looks like a channel where blood would pour out from a blood sacrifice, but I shouldn't. And his legs were not in the best shape, but his heart was. His heart was very much in the right place. He cared so much about this world. The paradox is that he was an atheist, and my work is in spirituality, but that didn't come between us one bit. So I'm going to go see his cousin. I don't know who it is. So thank you for taking the time for watching this video on Priene. If you have a chance to come here, come here. I will lead a tour here in November in search of the Divine Feminine. And if you want to find out more about it, just visit my website. Take care, everybody.